Welcome back to the Health Revival Show. Today we have Thomas Wilkinson. He is the founder and CEO of NeuroNova. And so we met him at the Vibrant Health Summit last September. It's taken us this long to get on a podcast because of very
That's
busy schedules. And we're excited to chat about, I'm just going to call it the dopamine chair. Maybe I'm off point there, but we're going to call it the dopamine chair. And for all of you who feel this anhedonia post COVID flat effect is kind of what we talk about with some of our clients in our practice. This could definitely be for you. Or if you are someone struggling with anxiety, depression, alcohol withdrawal, opioid withdrawal, addictions, we know that dopamine is this neurotransmitter that, is kind of more on that addictive side. So I'm excited to dive in today. So welcome to the show. We'll just let you kick it off by introducing yourself to our audience. What is your background and what led you to start NeuroNova and essentially invent this?
Well, so first of all, glad to be here. And I'm certainly not going to claim that I'm smart enough to come up with this technology, but I have been a longtime entrepreneur. I started as a student in mechanical engineering, and I started my first business while in school. This was back in 2014. And so I've just fallen in love with starting businesses. And my expertise has been taking technology that professors have developed at universities and helping them come to life. So that's kind of how I got started on this path. But NeuroNova is the most exciting business that I've ever been a part of, and it's not even close. And the reason is the impact is so huge, and the amount of lives that it can bless. Because let's face it, after COVID, we're in tough shape. If you've done any research on anxiety and mental health, we're not in a good spot. And so I'm really excited and really proud to be a part of a business that's trying to make that better and do it in a non-invasive and non-pharmacological way. And that's what really drew me to this technology. And we can dive into it now or later if you want to, exactly how it works. But I lost a close family member to an overdose on methadone. And so this was about 10 years ago. And so I've always wondered, well, I guess we should educate the audience a little bit. If you have a friend or family member that goes through addiction recovery, what happens is your brain has artificially high dopamine levels when you're on a substance. So when you abruptly stop taking heroin or whatever, your brain, the levels of dopamine plummet. And that's really painful, and it causes withdrawals and sometimes can be fatal. And so what happens is the current method has been to give that person methadone, which is another drug. So you're treating somebody with a substance abuse problem with another substance to come off the withdrawals, but then they become addicted to that new substance. Turns out one of the neuroscientists at the university here in Utah had a family member go through the same thing, and he was smart enough to do something about it. And so he said, "Look, my new life's mission is to help the brain produce dopamine in a non-invasive, non-pharmacological way." And it took years with zero progress, 7 years exactly, with zero progress. And they had a bit of a penicillin moment in 2019, and that's why we're where we're at today.
So, can you explain what the NeuroNova chair does and essentially who you are seeing it used for, how it's helping, just so that people understand what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably really helpful. So, what the NeuroNova chair is doing is it's sending a gentle vibration up your spine, and we're targeting nerve endings in your spine called mechanoreceptors. There's little nerves that are sensitive to mechanical stimulation. And after about 7 minutes, what we see in the trials is your brain should produce about 200% of baseline dopamine, and that lasts for about 3 hours. We saw in our NIH trials a 60% decrease in generalized anxiety versus placebo when people were coming off of opiates. So, really strong. And these were double blind placebo controlled. So, um, very strong data. And so the NIH funded another $3.5 million to do a multi-state trial as we take this through the FDA. And so that's the goal eventually, to have insurance reimbursed for this. But it was breakthrough tech. And
Yeah.
the story of how the scientists figured it out is kind of cool. if you guys want me to share, I can share.
We like
Yeah.
cool stories.
Okay, so they're in the lab. Picture this, just like five, I don't want to say nerdy, but just the smartest people, neuroscientists. Nothing's working. And one of the guys is like, hey, I noticed 10 years ago when we were working with these opiate addicts doing like back adjustments, some of them would report that they would have their anxiety alleviated. What if we tried targeting nerve endings in the spine to see if that does anything? And everyone laughed at him. They thought, you're crazy. This is woo woo, whatever. And he's like, well, nothing else is worth. Let's try it. So they tried vibration and they guessed 80 hertz. So they rigged up these rodents with these machines, hit them with 80 hertz, cut their brain open, 200% of baseline dopamine, and they couldn't believe it. What's more impressive or more cool is they tried over 100 frequencies after that, and it was nothing. So they could have tried 10 or 15 in a row and thought, okay, this is another dead end. You're crazy, and moved on. So I thought it was kind of like a penicillin moment. I don't know if you guys know how they discovered penicillin, but it was like an accident. Somebody brought a moldy sandwich into the lab and got into the petri dish. So kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a God's intervention moment, of
I
picking the
think so.
right thing and it becoming what it is meant to be. Um, can you explain, just because the immediate thought I have is like a vibration plate, right? So a lot of females use them for lymphatic drainage. I don't see men
Yeah.
use them as, but women
Yeah.
try to do anything to lose weight. So I think of like, the I love feel really good after mine. So maybe it is having some small effect on dopamine. But explain, because I believe I talked to you guys at the Vibrant Summit about this. Why do you have to sit on it? Like, why is it
Yeah.
different standing
Great
vibration?
question. So 80 hertz is a very, very rapid frequency. That's 80 times a second. And we actually tried to do it with people standing up. There's like too many different variables to get it because we're actually targeting like right here in your neck. That's the highest concentration of these nerve endings. And so what's actually happening is we had to invent a new waveform. So have you ever seen at a lake or on the ocean when two waves hit each other, a third one's created, it's a little bit bigger? That's actually what we're doing. So you're only getting about 25 hertz on one side, 25 and a half on the other. And those two waves combine and create a third wave that's embedded into your spine. And you can't do it if that person is standing up. And from what I understand, vibe plates are around 40 hertz. If you try to get 80 hertz to somebody's spine with them standing up, you'd probably kill them. I
Oh,
don't know. Like it's that intense.
wow. Because I sat on it when I was there and I didn't notice it was like super intense feeling when you're sitting on it,
It's not.
but it's
It's not when
crazy.
you yeah, it's not when you sit on it. But if you're standing all the way up, you just
Mhm.
can't to get 80 hertz up to that level, it would have to be so intense that it would not work.
Got it. I understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
I'm just fascinated sometimes with the way that brains work of people that invent things like this.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that, obviously the research is there and you're seeing it. I want to go back to what you mentioned earlier in terms of the post-COVID, the epidemic that we're seeing with anxiety and depression. I remember, and to be transparent, I have not looked at the stats recently, but back in 2021, things were coming out that we were seeing over a 400% increase. And I can only imagine what it's been since then. And that's reported, right? People saying, I feel more depressed, I feel more anxious because obviously you locked everybody and shut the world down and we need that connection with people. But more importantly, I would love for you to kind of expand upon that and what you all have seen because in our practice we're seeing a lot of what we call anhedonia where people just aren't excited about life. It's kind of this flat effect essentially. And they might be taking hormones, they might be taking peptides, they might be doing all the right things with their diet or exercise or whatever, but they feel almost like they're being pulled through sand, if that makes sense. Like everything just feels challenging. It's not anything that's bringing them joy. So, when we talk about all of these really cool tools, what is the thing that people really need to understand about dopamine? Because our understanding is that you can't feel the other things in terms of this hormones or, peptides. I was going to say something else. I don't know what I was going to say peptides or the things that you were doing if you can't feel dopamine. So I'd love for you to expand upon that because we are seeing even more, even on like genetic reports and different things. If the GABA glutamate balance is off, you could take all the supplements till the cows come home, but are you even able to utilize them if you don't feel dopamine?
Great question. Have you ever read the book The Anxious Generation?
I have not.
No. I think
Dopamine
it's
is one that is in my
Dopamine Nation.
dopamine nation. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
is one.
that was by Dr. Anna Lemke, but the other is called The Anxious Generation, and it's actually pretty interesting as well. I'd recommend reading both of them. Um, the simple fact of the matter is our brains were not designed to get hit with notifications constantly throughout the day. They weren't designed for social media, for the instant like gratification of posting something and then getting likes. We weren't designed to use AI, and so I think it's a result of our world changing and how we engage with the world changing significantly. Um, but dopamine isn't a bad thing. Like we need dopamine so that we can have motivation and so we can learn. And I think one misconception around dopamine is that it's like supposed to be this feel good neurotransmitter, which it actually isn't. It's more a reward, or it primes your brain to be able to learn. I think of it as kind of like a lubricant. Uh, if if you if you don't have enough of it in your brain, you can't create new neural pathways to learn new behaviors. And so, yeah, we can dive deeper into the science on that. And actually, I wish Dr. Bills was on the call and he could kind of go again. I'm not a PhD, but Dr. Bills can go deep into that. But genuinely, I'm very concerned with the people that we're seeing. Just and yeah, it's sad to see where we're at as a society, but also really exciting to see the results that people are getting after using the chair and just getting back to a homeostasis. Right, that it's not. Um, when you're using social media or drugs or alcohol or whatever to get your fix of dopamine, you're getting like this artificial high. And then after you're done using it, you get a crash and you crash below baseline. And so when you're feeling anxiety, it's because you have this gap between your homeostasis level of dopamine and what you actually have. And what's different about what we're doing is we're doing what's called a physiological release of dopamine. So it's natural. And so you actually get like a stacking effect and you're kind of climbing your way out of that rut. And what we want to do is get you back to a level of homeostasis where you can feel calm again.
So I don't know if this is appropriate, but I have to ask in terms of our youth and teenagers and children, because I think that there's a lot of ADHD diagnoses. There's a lot of the anxiety and mood dysregulation that we're seeing. How have you used this with children or teens? And if so, what have you seen on that front? Because they're just bombarded. Even the schools now are using all tablets and computers and all of that. So it's just our learning styles have completely shifted as well. So they're just behind these screens all the time.
Yeah, we've seen incredible results. You called it the dopamine chair. We actually have a children's hospital in southern Utah. They call it the chill chair. The kids call it that. It just helps them regulate. And we're seeing a lot of traction getting our chairs into the school systems because of that. Um, I think, and this might be a hot take, but the fact that we're prescribing Adderall to children is we're basically microdosing methamphetamines to kids. I think that's insane. And you're basically creating an addict for life because they're going to be dependent on that forever. My personal experience and the reason I jumped all in on this because I purchased the technology from the university and partnered with the PhDs, but I had my own issue that I was trying to solve. Like I had a rough childhood. That's why my brother got into drugs, but my issue was anxiety. And, of course, the first thing I was prescribed when I, went into my doctor was, well, you got all these issues, so we're going to give you Adderall and citalopram and gabapentin and Klonopin. And I'm a 21-year-old kid, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm just in a lot of pain. So, okay, whatever you say. And I didn't want to tell my mom or my family about it because we just lost my brother, and I, I didn't want to be another burden, and so I just did what I thought everyone was doing. Um, and the problem is that the medication worked, but the side effects were terrible. And so I tried to get off those meds at least a dozen times, and I couldn't do it. It was affecting my relationships. It basically numbed me, and I wanted to be present and there for my kids. I have 3 kids, and so I saw this tech. I had obviously the experience with my brother, and I was like, okay, I'm seeing all these clinical trials. I'm going to try it for myself and see if it works for me. And it was life changing. I was able to transition from those meds in a matter of a few days. And so I just knew at that point I was all in, and this is now my life mission, and I'm excited to share it with the world.
Amazing. So I'd love for, and I know we mentioned having the doctor is something that we've seen a lot of because we do work a lot with autoimmune and really complex chronic conditions, and how much dopamine is an immune messenger as well that people don't realize, and how it affects like inflammatory pathways and people being on these drugs their entire lives. Because I think a lot of times too, people think that they need to be so productive all the time, that a lot of people on these medications don't actually need these medications. Like they think that, oh, I'm operating at such a higher level on them that I should be here all the time, right? Like this is what should be normal, when no, it's not. Like we probably just need to do a really hard work at getting rid of some distractions and like focusing ourselves on things and having realistic expectations of ourselves on things. But then you do create, like any medication, you create dependency on it. You need higher doses of it, right? The body will adapt to it over time. But what we're seeing too is that the combination of a lot of these hard medications that people were put on as teenagers, Accutane and Adderall, and these things that are just so chemically potent, are creating higher risk of autoimmune conditions and like
Interesting.
more layered factors to it. So I would love for you to talk a little bit around with the chair and using of the chair. How often are you seeing people need to use it? Are What kind of outcomes are you seeing? How quick? My brain also obviously goes to Parkinson's because of my dad has Parkinson's. So like application wise, what are you seeing with the chair in terms of need and duration with some of these things?
Great question. So in our clinical trials, we have 7 of them. We see a significant impact after 10 sessions. You're seeing a 60% decrease in generalized anxiety. Um, but we actually have a lot of users that use it daily. I use it every day because, like I think I talked about earlier, dopamine is context dependent. It's the learning chemical, and so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to like improve the habits that I have each day. Because I guess that's just, I'm always trying to improve upon myself. So I'll do it first thing when I get up, and I'll do a meditation, and I'll write down what I'm grateful for, and I go to the gym. Then when I get home at night, get the kids down, all the things, and then I sit on it right before bed, and then I write down the 3 wins I had that day and the 3 wins I'm going to have the next day, and then I'm out. And what's really cool is we see the one of the clinical trials, we see a significant impact on sleep latency. So it used to take, I track on my Oura ring, it used to take me an hour and a half to fall asleep. Now I'm in between 10 and 17 minutes. I'm out, which was really cool. But this is an interesting story. I was in Arizona not too long ago, and we haven't done a clinical trial on this part of sleep yet. But I have a venture capital fund, and so I was just talking to the guy about my fund, and he's like, "Hey, I noticed you have this Aura ring. I'm a sleep specialist. Like that is my thing. I'm an MD. I think that the number one contributor to cognitive decline is actually a lack of deep sleep. Would you mind if I look at your data?" And I said, "Okay." So I handed my phone, and he looks at my data, and he's like scrolling through it. And I just see his eyes get big. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, "Dude, I have to be honest with you, I've never seen anything like this. How are you getting over 2 hours of deep sleep every night? Like, how's it like consistently over 25% of your total sleep? And I said, I actually, I don't know, but my sleep's been great. I invested in this company, and I run this company called NeuroNova. This is what it is. And he's like, wait a second, I have to talk to your PhD, your inventor right now. So we call Dr. Bills, and they're on the phone just giddy, like talking about the science. And Dr. Bills is like, yeah, Tom, I forgot to tell you about this. We actually saw with deep sleep significant impacts. We just haven't published this study yet. Um, and anyway, so they get off the phone, and the guy looks at me. He's like, I have to be honest with you. If this does what I think it's doing, this will be the biggest company I'll see in my lifetime, because of the way it's able to help people with their deep sleep. So then I send it to all the people I know that struggle with deep sleep. I sent it to my mom. I sent it to this family in Midway, going from about only getting 30 minutes of deep sleep a night to now over an hour and a half a night. So really cool stuff around sleep. We talked about addiction recovery. We talked about anxiety, PTSD, OCD, pain management, and then of course Parkinson's is one that's really interesting. We don't have our clinical trials done with that yet, but we're seeing anecdotal evidence that it's being really helpful. And one that I feel, I guess at this point, good talking about. We've had enough mothers of kids with autism send us testimonials like, I've never seen my son smile so much in his life. Like, just helping them regulate their emotions. It's been incredible to see that. And I'm excited to do some trials on that to get some data back. But it truly is breakthrough technology, and just anyway, getting excited about it. But
Yeah.
How much does the chair weigh? I'm just curious.
I think it's like 30 pounds.
Oh, okay. That's not bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wanted to talk a little bit about, like you were saying, that you're using it a couple times a day, just everything that is even on the website, like 5 times a week, 10 minutes. Anybody can do this, right? Very easy to implement. You could use it for your entire family for, again, a variety of things that you're talking about here. I would even love to know if you've seen anything more on the gut side. So, obviously, we know that our gut microbiome has a big influence and gut brain access, all these things on our neurotransmitters. Have you seen anything in, maybe you haven't studied this, or maybe you have, relation to things like irritable bowel or IBD, Crohn's colitis, chronic bloating, just digestive issues in general, and how this has maybe helped? Obviously, I'm the poop queen, so I'm always talking to
Yeah.
people, constipation side of things, but I have several cases of people who have done all the things. And
Yeah.
it's like, why do you still struggle with the bloating or the distension? And I think when we go back to the gut brain connection, the neurological, even like sensations through the vagus nerve and the spinal cord and everything, there's got to be a missing link here. So just really curious if you've seen anything on the gut side.
So there probably is. We don't have data on this yet, but Dr. Bills would probably be able to comment more on this. What I've personally seen, not necessarily on the gut side, because I haven't had gut issues in necessarily, um, but I have lost almost 30 pounds of fat because it's helped me. So when I do my meditation, obviously I have the dopamine in my brain. What I'm trying to do is rewire my subconscious about my relationship with food. And it's really helped me be more disciplined from that aspect. So um, I don't, for me, been my personal experience with it. But that's probably a deeper question for Dr. Bills. But, the science would say probably.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to, if you can circle back and find that answer so that we can, share that in a future podcast. Because again, when you think about the reward mechanism for people, that's why they binge eat, right? They're ultimately trying to find pleasure and happiness and joy at the same time suppress other feelings and emotions, right? And so whether that's showing up as alcohol, drugs, binge eating, or whatever it could be in terms of scrolling and all the things that we have these days. Because like you said, we were never really meant to live in this environment where we're behind screens all the time. We're not outside in the sun. We're not searching for our food. And, we just have Uber Eats and anything French fried readily available to you that you want. It's crazy. And so a lot of that has obviously shifted how our physiology is working in this environment, which we could all probably agree not very well considering the pandemic that we have of obesity. So, yeah, I would love for you to follow up on that and give us a little bit more context if you can from him, because I do think that for some individuals on that side of the addiction for food and binging, this could be really powerful. And obviously, that impacts the gut because it's such an inflammatory event to binge.
I couldn't agree more. And you said something that stood out to me that we've gotten feedback from our customers that have families is that this just having one in your home to help regulate everyone in the family. I mean, it's less than $200 a month, but we've got a family in Arizona. Dad struggled with anxiety. Two of the kids struggle with anxiety, and they get an immense amount of value out of it. And they've got some cool testimonials that they've sent from that. But anyway,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I know my kids always love standing on my vibration plate. I'm sure they'd love sitting on my a vibrating chair if I got one. Uh,
My son told me the other day, Mom, I'm getting a six pack because Becca got a vibration plate. And I honestly was like, I'm never getting a vibration plate. They're stupid. I have a reel coming out because I used to be a dancer. I can vibrate my body pretty well. So I'm like, you can just do this free, or you can do that. And now even my baby, who's 13 months, goes over, he turns it on, he like gets on it on all fours. It's so funny. And then he like making noises. But
that's
yeah, my
funny.
son who's 6 was like, Mom,
See, I put my 1 year old on this on the seat when he's like a little dysregulated, and it is really gentle. And then he kind of chills him out too. He likes it.
yeah. And
I
man, anything to
I know,
chill
anything
out.
to chill out. I mean, and that's who I feel the worst with all of this is our kids. Like, I know you have kids. I have 2 little kids. Liz has 2 little kids. Like, they're just set up for failure at this point in terms of all that they're exposed to. And like, then you feel like a bad parent because, I'm like, you can't watch this, you can't watch that. You can't, cause like, I know if you turn on YouTube, you're just going to scroll and scroll and scroll because like, they don't have the mental capacity to be like, this is wrong or this is not, and it just, they're, I'm worried, like genuinely worried about our youth and the world that they're having to grow up in, not only because of all of the things that they're exposed to dopamine wise, but also just like the unrealistic expectations that social media now sets in terms of you can't believe anything you see on there. And it's just, I think it's going to mess with the brain so much more than we even realize already. And I think we're just now starting to see the negative effects of what COVID did. Like truly, we were talking about it yesterday with our mentor in terms of I think I was hearing statistics this morning on a
Kids
podcast.
can't read.
Yeah, kids can't read because they're just not like they don't have to, basically. They are like and 1 in 5 adults now is believed to have what's called mast cell activation syndrome, and COVID was believed to kinda like destabilize the immune system in these weird ways that no other virus did. And then also the, you know, pandemic of isolation and not seeing people and the mental health that kind of repercussed from that. But with this chair, so I'd love for you to talk a little bit. Obviously, it's in, hospitals and it's in health centers and it's, it's not cheap to have and own one of these shares, but I'd love for you to give people insight into how they can use them. Like you said, less than $200 a month. Like I'm actually thinking about renting this share, not only for my house, but I might rent it for my dad first. But talk to people about what that looks like, where they can find out more information about it, and who you would say, I know we've talked about, the top symptoms that it seems to alleviate, but who you would say this is really geared towards when it comes to, the population in general.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I wanted to note, and I'm grateful for you guys for putting on this podcast because I think what you're doing is helping wake us all up because obviously our society went way too far to the hey, just take a pill and you're good. And now we're coming back to wait a minute, like that's not the only way to treat, certain symptoms, and we could do a more holistic, natural way. And the FDA is actually clearing what are called neuromodulation devices, which is what our chair is for other neurotransmitters like serotonin. Ours in particular is targeting dopamine. So I'm hopeful, even though it seems dire, I'm hopeful because people are waking up to it. It was painful enough that we're like, now we're trying to solve the problem. As far as affordability, yes. So we have clinics across the country that have our chair, and you can go there and pay to, have a few sessions. But what we learn is people want to have it where they're at, either at their workplace or at their home. And so we've created a model that allows people to rent it to have it their home. And that's less than $200 a month. And you can even buy it if you want to buy it up front. It's 6,000, or through a firm you can do a payment plan through them, which is less than $200 a month, and an immense amount of value. What we're seeing is like who you're going to see the biggest impact for are people that struggle with anxiety or addiction, and then struggle to sleep, and those kind of are the ones that are going to see an impact more readily. We see people that have um, gone through like intense trauma that are dealing with a ton of anxiety. You see them sit on the chair and you can watch them change right before your eyes. Really cool. And it affects people a little bit differently. It does, depends on who you are, but yeah, if you're dealing with anxiety and acute anxiety as well, it's really helpful.
That's amazing. So NeuroNova is the name of it. I'm assuming neuronova.com.
I wish. It's neuronova co uh com. Yeah.
Don't worry, we're a .co too.
Okay. Yeah, wait,
Everyone's
yeah,
always so confused.
neuronovaco.com.
They're always so confused, and I'm like, "No, it's .co." CO.
It's
No,
not.
ours is neuronovaco.com. We should have done a neuronova co.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
well.
okay. We'll put all the links in the show notes. But yeah, going back to what you mentioned around renting, let's talk a little bit more around what you would say, how long, obviously, probably person independent and how severe, what they're dealing with. But in general, you were saying earlier from an anxiety perspective, most people getting 10 uses and feeling really good, feeling really regulated. Because even on the pharmaceutical side, so using something like a mantidine, which is often used for kind of helping re-regulate dopamine, bring back homeostasis, it's a short-term thing. So
Yeah.
obviously in your case, you have a longer term, you own the technology, right? But you have a longer term use and you're finding that and you would recommend that. And probably for severe people, you would. But what would you say someone should plan or budget for if they were going to rent it? 3 months, 6 months, longer,
But
shorter?
at least give it 3 months and just get as much value out as you can. What we're seeing, we're not seeing a lot of people send it back after you have it for a month. It's like, okay, well, now how can I optimize, right? How can I continue to better my mental health and just help myself regulate? Because we all have little habits that we're trying to change, in our lives, and it's a really useful tool for that. And whether or not you have anxiety, like you, you may have gotten your anxiety under control, but you're still going to have stressful days. And it's nice after a stressful day, just to like, okay, I need to zone out and zen out before I go to bed so I can sleep better. And so, um, most of the time people end up keeping it, but we wanted to have an option so that just about anybody could afford it. And that's my ultimate goal. And I want to get it to that point where it's affordable for everyone.
Fantastic. My last question, because what automatically comes to mind for me, and I've been very open about this on the podcast over the years, I'm a terrible meditator. Like I've had the Muse device in the past and it worked really well. I got to gamify things, right? Bought a new one. I was so frustrated. I sent it back because it just wasn't like working. And there's nothing more frustrating than something that doesn't work, right? That's supposed to work.
Yeah.
So when you're on the chair, are you allowed to do anything else? Or you just say, like, this is your time. You need to sit, zone out. You don't need to be on your phone. Don't be reading a book. Like, what are you going to recommend with the use of the chair?
You could probably read a book. I would not recommend being on your phone because you don't want to reinforce that connection there. And so as far as meditation goes, I'm with you. I have never been able to meditate in my life until having this chair. And I don't, you know, it helps put you into that space where you can go through it. But it is helpful to have a meditation going so that you're, reinforcing some of those behaviors. So I would try it. Like if you have a chance to have one, I would try it and then try a meditation with it. See if it actually helps you meditate. But you want to be really intentional with what you do after you do the chair because you're getting more dopamine for 3.5 hours. So you want to reinforce whatever that behavior is. And so I wouldn't sit on the chair and then just go watch TV. Like you want to pair it with positive behaviors, whether it's doing your homework, it's working on your business, it's, connecting with your partner, which has been really helpful for me. It helps me chill out. and I can really connect with my partner in a way that I haven't, my wife in a way I haven't been able to do in the past. Those are the types of activities that you want to reinforce.
Fantastic.
Love
When
it.
I'm moving in a few months. When I move, I'll definitely have to rent one for a few months just to see, because I think
I
that
don't
this
get
is
good deep sleep. I'll be really curious. My deep sleep's usually less than an hour. It's gotten a little bit better with some other hacks, but like I've always struggled with deep sleep, and I struggle with fatigue, and I struggle with brain fog. Like those are kind of big things that I've
Yeah, I would love to see if it can help you.
yeah, I will
yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
we get one and have your dad sit on it and
Yeah.
do some
Yeah, I know
therapy.
that
So
I think we talked at the I don't think late stage or later stage Parkinson's, it was something that you guys mentioned was like a huge turnaround.
It would be harder probably later stage, but it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. I mean, he has pain. I'm sure for other things, like, absolutely could be helpful for him. So, yeah. Awesome.
awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much. And I think we're going to get a link in the show notes here if you guys are listening and you want to use that to go and rent or purchase whatever. Everything is below. And then we'll have our code FitMom for you as well. And if you like this episode, please share this out, because the more that we can spread the word about these types of devices, again, not pharmaceutical and not anything that's, major life altering where you have to travel and go get these therapeutics. You can have this in your home. This is fantastic. And I would just say to you, thank you for making it affordable for people. You really break it down by the day. It's just a couple bucks a day for something that can really change your life. So links are in the show notes. Please, if you share it, tag us on social media. That's how we grow our show. Just found out right before we recorded that we are now a top 0.5% in the world, which is
Whoa.
amazing. We've been a top 1% for a long time. This is our 6th year podcasting. So that was really fun. And the only way this has been possible is through our listeners sharing, rating, reviewing, subscribing. We don't do any ads on the show. So thank you for whoever is doing that. And with that, go and rent yourself a dopamine chair and connect with this company. And we hope you guys have a great day.